today, folks? Let's get started, then. So we're going to do a lot of different things today. We're going to talk about some options that you can go after in order to participate in the crossing river discussion. It is an important chapter. It's a very short chapter. We're going to have this discussion tomorrow, but we're having a guest speaker tomorrow instead. I'm also going to share with you guys some examples from the occupation and the opportunity to kind of tie that up. We're going to save some time at the end if we need to. If we need to do any last-minute group stuff with your team in order to submit that Google Doc and be done with it. I got some must-keep demo videos I want to share with you as well. And I'll talk about submitting any CAMEs and a little bit about a upcoming writing assignment based upon the book, Washington's Crossing. All right? So with that said and done, let me start off first, I think, with the paper issues. Let's do that first. So, we're reading the book, right? And we're doing these great things with the book. But we're also going to read some additional sources about Washington's Crossing. Starting on Wednesday, we're going to start watching excerpts of the film The Patriot. Then after that point, on Friday into Monday and Tuesday next week, we're going to watch the movie The Crossing. So we're watching two Hollywood interpretations of the American Revolution. The Patriot's one example that's very different. We'll get to it later. But the movie The Crossing is all about Washington and the Trenton Battle and the river crossing and all about that. So they're both really good. They're both dramatic. They both have some great things that are supposed to be correct. But they also have a bunch of stuff that perhaps isn't as correct. And one of the greatest, I think, misfortunes is a lot of us learn our history through movies and TV. And oftentimes, movie in Hollywood distort the reality for dramatic effect. And oftentimes, we leave out a bunch of stuff that even make the movie even more dramatic because of time constraints. So we're going to analyze that. So I put a folder at the top of our Schoology page called The Patriot and the Crossing Analysis. It's all here for you. And here is the actual paper topic. So this is kind of a major writing assignment for the Niagara course. You're going to have two major writing assignments. This is one of them. The other one will pretty much be your script for your research for your final video documentary that you're going to produce in the spring. This is going to be about a 4 to 5 page length response essay. Double spaced though, so it's really not that bad. And you can go far beyond 4 and 5 if you want to. A lot of students do. And don't be afraid to do that. I'll never mark you off for going beyond. The 4 to 5 is going to be sort of the expectation. Double spaced, you're going to be evaluated on examples, style of writing, conventions. Some of you are getting a little nervous about this, but in a lot of college classes, you'll get at least these every few weeks. So this is the norm. So it's not that much actually. You have a lot longer college papers usually. So this would be good. Double space, not that bad. So your sources are going to be the book, obviously. The book is your major source, right? The way Fischer portrays Washington and Washington's Crossing. I told you we're going to watch excerpts of the film The Patriot and then the whole film The Crossing. And then I put together a primary source collection about The Crossing, additional first-hand accounts about it that Fischer did not use. And I want you to take a look at some of those as well. So you're going to compare and contrast the Delaware Crossing and the Revolution with the films. You're going to analyze pretty much the historical reality. What did it coincide with that was a really good demonstration of the historical reality? And where are some areas where the film and the movies kind of diverge from what you read? In your analysis, though, I want you to also include MAT, our models and theories. Anything you want, leaving it wide open. You want to talk about principles of war. You want to talk about American way of war, worm's eye view, bird's eye view, whatever you want, leadership. All that you can kind of sprinkle into this essay. The rubric is pretty straightforward. You can go through it more on your own, and I'll be happy to walk it through more detail with you if you want. You're going to evaluate on your thesis. You're going to evaluate on your argumentation, how much evidence you support. I'm looking for you to use The Crossing and 3 additional primary sources. And there's a lot of variety you can choose from, and they're not very long. Okay? You're going to talk about compare and contrast, obviously, because you're comparing and contrasting the documents, the Fischer book with the movies. You're also going to do some other things with comparison there, and you're also going to do some other aspects here as well. And then it's all due on December 19th by 11:59 p.m. That's the Thursday before we leave for the holiday break. I don't want to put it off during the holiday break. I want you to enjoy that almost 2 weeks with your friends, your family, and relax. You need to do that. We all need to do that. and you don't want to have a paper hang over your head. Just enjoy the holidays. You know, on Christmas Day, think of George Washington and the Hessians. I'm saying. All right. So, and there might be a little surprise Instagram post on that morning. You never know. Yeah.
Does the book that we're reading right now classify as a primary source?
No. Well,
that's why
the major book is a secondary source, but it uses a lot of primary sources. But I'm giving you additional ones. Okay. All right, folks. So back to the folder, if you would please. Here's this source collection. And I'll just walk it through it quickly with you guys so you know what is in this source collection. You don't have to use all of it, but listen to this carefully. I probably should mark this down, but I have it. Maybe I'll do another copy of it. This first two sources are movie reviews. Listen to this carefully. You cannot use these reviews as a source in your analysis, but I encourage you to read them because they give you a good starting point. They're movie reviews that are written by historians. And these reviews analyze exactly what I'm telling you to do. What worked well in the film, what was true, what was distorted. It's a good place to start off. So the first is a review. It starts down here in the first column. The Crossing and the Patriots, combined review. And it ends around there. And the second review is only about the Patriots. Use them, but do not use them as a source for your actual analysis. The next ones are a bunch of primary source accounts from the Battle of Trenton. They're pretty short. They're good. They coincide with what we were reading about. Next is a letter, I believe from Washington, really, really short. Another one is a newspaper article from January 8th, 1776. I like to use these because this is exactly how it looked in the newspaper. That's an actual cutout of the paper looked like on 1776, January 8th. I think that's pretty cool to see it like that. All right, next is another letter from George Washington. Same thing appeared in the newspaper, just like that. George Washington, there's the signature. December 31st, 1776. Pretty neat. Next is a trial of a Hessian officer who was captured, a court-martial. Kind of neat. And then the last source is actually a bonus source. This Guns of Destiny. No, it's not, excuse me. Colonel Raw Trenton is one more source you can use. Forgot about this one. You have to use them all. I'm saying at least 3. But then the last source here is a bonus source, Guns of Destiny. It's a secondary source by Jack Weller, and it's about the use of artillery at Trenton. And the use of artillery at Trenton, which we're going to go over today quickly, was really innovative and different from the way artillery was used at other battles. And it changes the way we use artillery in battle. So it's a good article. If you use this one, in addition to the other primary sources I asked you to use, it's bonus credit. It's a bonus source. So you can use it for that reason. So that's really, really, really good. So take a look at that. That's really awesome, if you would like. Okay. The other things here, folks. Back to the folder here. Oops, sorry. There we go. You can watch The Patriot right now, and there's The Crossing. Those are links to the actual videos if you're absent or you're going to be away early for the holiday. And then this is where you drop the assignment on December 19th. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's all there for you, one folder, all the sources, all the links, everything. Boom, top of the Schoology page. Great. Don't look so gloomy about it. It's not a hard assignment, and it's actually kind of fun when you're watching the movies over the next few days. Take some good notes, and while you take good notes, you're gonna have it already done. It's not really hard if you actually watch the movie and think about things carefully. And I'll explain this more on Wednesday. I even have this little organizer for you to use when you watch the Patriot. So you can think of a lot of math and theory. We'll get to it. I'm making it really easy for you. So yeah, it'll be good. So don't stress about it. Extremely doable assignment. Comments or questions about that? Everybody pretty good? Okay, awesome. Now, kind of back to our topic today. I want to share with you some examples from some of the things that we've been reading together. And here's quickly a map of the retreat. And I know we did a nice discussion of that the other day. Just to kind of put the geography, in case you kind of skim over these maps. Washington's army is in the white arrows, and the British are in the black arrows. So they start outside New York City, right? And Washington moves down here. He splits his forces around Newark, New Jersey, where Part B takes it to Morristown. The rest of the army goes down to Trenton. And some of you read, right, there is some problems with General Lee, right? Washington wants Lee to rejoin his army before the attack, and Lee is reluctant. And as you know, right, Lee gets captured, right, in a bar, in a tavern, right, all by himself. He leaves his command, goes to a tavern. People in the community alert the British surround the tavern, and Lee is captured, right, by the British in a tavern without even his own men. Made it worse is that Lee then agreed to give the British any information they wanted to and help Howe out. And the British were happy to accept it, but at the same time, they kind of thought that Lee was kind of a skunk, kind of a traitor. And they had no respect for him, even though they were going to use the info he was going to give them. It's kind of a little bit, a little bit hypocritical, but they still used it, right? Same thing with Benedict Arnold, right? You guys know Benedict Arnold, the most famous traitor of American history. Yeah, but even Arnold, went off to like England with the rest of his life in London. He's kind of an outcast. Everyone saw him as a traitor, even though he helped the British. They had no respect for him, and he had a miserable life his whole entire time. Kind of sad, because he was so talented of a leader and a general, and unfortunately went to the dark side. Anyway, okay, so moving on. All right, now some things we did not have a whole class discussion of the crisis. As I told you the other day, if you want to add more to the Schoology post, you certainly can. But some things that I want to point out. On page 142, and it goes into 143. I want to read this to you. I think it's an important quote. There's an old American folktale about George Washington and the crossing of the Delaware. It tells us that the new American republics nearly failed in the winter of 1776, that George Washington crossed the Delaware Christmas night, and that his victory at Trenton revived the Revolution. All of this story is true, but it's not the whole truth. There was more to it. The Great Revival did not follow the battles of Trenton and Princeton, important as they were. It preceded them and made these events possible, though not inevitable. Further, the revival did not rise solely from the issue of George Washington himself, great as he was as a general and a man. He would have been the first to agree that it emerged from the efforts of many soldiers and civilians, merchants and farmers, leaders in the army, and members of Congress. Most of all, it rose from the acts and choices of ordinary people in the valley of the Delaware, as Thomas Paine's America's Crisis began to circulate amongst them. A couple of things to talk about there, right? So we always think of George Washington and this Battle of Trenton was the whole turning point. It is, but it's not the whole story, right? Things had to happen first to make it possible, right? And that's the whole point. All of these things, and mostly from average people, ordinary citizens, taking things into their own matter, made this possible, right? So I think that's an important place for us to kind of go back to and look at for a moment. Another one is an issue of another general, General Gates. So, General Washington is the top-ranking general in the American Army. After him comes General Lee. He's the second highest-ranking general in the whole entire Army. Under him is Horatio Gates. Gates was actually British-born, but went with the American cause instead of the British cause. And for a while was doing well, but towards the middle period here, he starts to doubt Washington's leadership. His aide, Major James Wilkinson, remembered that in December, Gates was deeply worried about Washington's leadership and wished to fight the war in a different way, by retreating deep into the interior of the country. Gates took his complaints directly to Congress, where some members were sympathetic to him. It was a direct challenge to Washington's conduct of the war by the third-ranking general in the Army. So he goes behind Washington's back and basically writes a letter saying, hey, listen, you got to get Washington what he's doing, and I think we should do this. Deeply hurt Washington, right? There's going to be a great scene in the movie The Crossing where Washington and Gates confront each other directly. It's really dramatic and powerful, and there's some truth to it. And here's kind of part of that. All right? Now, one more from The Crisis about Henry Knox. Henry Knox will also be in the movie The Crossing. Henry Knox will actually be our first Secretary of War. This is all over. Kind of like Hamilton was tied to Washington, so is Knox. But he's a guy who transforms American artillery. Super important guy. While the infantry was reorganized, another form was made in the American artillery. The central figure was Henry Knox, who had become one of Washington's most trusted lieutenants. A Boston bookseller, he had taught himself the science of gunnery from treatises in his own shop, which that means that he owned a bookstore. And what he did was basically take out every single book he could on war and artillery, and he memorized it all and learned from it, and then became really, really good at it. Had no experience at all in the military, but just read all his own books in his own bookshop, which is pretty neat. He was intelligent and highly inventive, and became a valid advisor on questions of management and strategy in the Army. A big, heavy-set man with a booming voice, he was also a tested leader in battle. Washington wrote of him that his genius supplied the deficit of means. Knox studied ways to minimize losses in his own forces, while raising the cost to his enemy. Henry Knox, this is really important, integrated infantry and artillery and uses field guns as assault weapons. He assigned an additional company of artillery to each brigade of infantry. One historian observes an artillery company added materially to the firepower of each brigade, particularly in adverse weather. At Trenton and at Princeton, a week later, Washington's brigade commanders used both of these factors to advantage. Muskets were difficult to fire in wet weather and impossible in stormy conditions. Artillery could be protected with tampions and touch holes and covers and fire to use shield and slow match. I'll explain what that means. So we talked about this already. Muskets don't fire in bad weather, right? The wind blows out the spark, it doesn't work. Well, cannons don't have that problem. The bag of gunpowder, which is about that big, is shielded. It doesn't get wet that much. You could ram it down the same way. There's a little hole in the top of a cannon. You can cover it. You can kind of keep it dry. You pour the powder on that hole. It's not hard to keep it dry. And then they use slow matches. You dip in I forgot, it was like calcium nitrate something. But it burns really slow. But the problem is it doesn't go out either. Like, it's hard to put it out. So it can be raining, and that rope will still burn very slowly. You hit that gunpowder, boom, the cannon goes off. So cannons do work in bad weather. The British did not have as many cannons as we had. So Knox puts more cannons on the battlefield than the British and uses them to great advantage at Trenton and at Princeton. So we'll learn about that later. He's really, really important. He's also in the movie. Now, a couple last things here. The occupation. We have this chapter. Hopefully, yeah.
Where did we get more cannons on that? How
do we get them? We're manufacturing them. We stole a lot from the British at certain points. He's got Boston and Fort Ticonderoga, so we've acquired them, and we're using them to much more advantage. Yeah, really good question. Now, this one. If you have this chapter, maybe you already brought this up with your group, but I just want to highlight it in case you didn't. This is an important term. Now it was a term of the British officers, right, to be outraged. By 18th century European rules of war, civilians in arms could be put to death. The French called them francs-tireurs, Germans considered them bêtines, English troops referred them as banditti. These laws of war were ruthlessly enforced in European conflicts by summary execution. Even today, civilians not in uniform are forbidden to defend themselves against regular soldiers under the terms of the Hague Convention. Americans in 17th century protected these rules from the day of Lexington and Concord. Men without uniforms believed they had a natural right to take up arms in defense of their laws and liberties. This is huge. So people in New Jersey are rising up. They're not soldiers. They're average civilians. They get out their guns, and when they have a chance, they go after British and Hessian soldiers. Technically, that's against the rules of war, and these people can be executed on the spot. Same problem we have today in Iraq and Afghanistan, when people are like insurgents, we call them, right? They're not uniformed, and they fire at American soldiers and Allied forces. We technically could put those people to death. We don't, because it would probably create international outrages and more political problems. But we could, because it's against the rules of war. You can't do that. On this basis of the law of war, New Jersey, General Howe announced a new policy. Anyone not in uniform who attacks his troops will be judged an assassin and put to death on the spot. Captain Muchenhausen noted it is now ordered that inhabitants who ventured in mobs or individually that fired at our passing men would be hanged at the next tree without trial. Boom, next tree, you're done. It's over. Yeah, they caught you. They see the next tree they see, they hang you. You're done. That's what the British Army was going to do. Only result was that more infuriated American civilians took up arms and more British and Hessian regulars died miserably on country lanes in New Jersey. So it actually the opposite effect. People were even more outraged and did it more. This will be, folks, a major part of the movie The Patriot. About militia that's not uniformed attacking British soldiers. How do you treat them? All right? Do you give them reciprocity? Do you not? Are they assassins? Are they actually armed soldiers? It's a big part of the movie. So take note of that. It's going to come up later. Opportunity chapter, really quickly, about Colonel Rahl. This is when they planned for the attack. A major factor, folks, be all with me, please. A major factor in the plans was Hessian contempt for Americans. Lieutenant Jacob Peel, regiment, wrote of Colonel Rahl. Colonel Rahl is the commanding officer of the Hessians at Trenton. It never struck him that the rebels might attack us, and therefore he made no preparations against an attack. I must concede that on the whole we had a poor opinion of the rebels, who previously had never successfully opposed us. This is the key. This is why it works. The Hessians are prepared, but they're not prepared for an American assault. The Americans don't attack. They either defend or retreat. they never attack. So the Hessians never thought the Americans would dare attack them at Trenton. That's a mistake. All right. Couple more. This is about Major Dickinson, who was recounting a man who also took things into his own account, his own action. This is a great story. If you didn't share it with your group, it's okay. I'm going to share it with you now. Dickinson found that many people in New Jersey were growing very angry against the British and German invaders who were attacking their houses and plundering their property. In Huntington County, one such man was Captain John Mott, who lived near Dickinson's house outside Trenton. According to family tradition, Mott was a Quaker who had married out of meeting, losing his birthright in the Society of Friends, and joined the militia. Okay, what does that mean? Quakers don't believe in what? Violence. They're pacifists. Right? They can get out of war because they believe it's against their faith to conduct any kind of violence against other people. So he could have got out of all of this, but he was kind of kicked out of the meeting house, which means that's like the Quaker church, because he married someone who wasn't a Quaker. So he was kicked out. So then since he was kicked out, he joined the militia, which is just kind of interesting. Kind of. One of his daughters recalled that on a bitter cold Sunday in December, the family was keeping warm by the fire when a party of 6 Germans approached the house. Mott barricaded the door and sent the children to hide in the cellar. The Hessians smashed the door with axes. I remember your groups, I heard you guys talk about on Friday, you guys discussed the rules of plundering, right? When someone knocks at your door, you're supposed to let them in. They did not. All right? Mott was a tall man and very strong. He met the intruders as they entered and fought them with a fireplace poker and tongs. It's great. In a terrific struggle, he killed 3 Hessians, and the others fled for their lives. One of the children in the cellar never forgot the tunnel overhead and told the story to her own children and recorded it. The family also recalled that this lapsed Quaker never spoke of the 3 Hessians who we forced to kill without tears, saying that it always seemed like murder to him. But kind of, yeah, right? When he defended his family against this plundering and did what he had to actually do. Kind of interesting, I think. All right, couple more. This is about the Christie attack. This is important. This is as the chapter ends. Other warnings of an American attack at the river at Trenton. On Christmas Eve, 2 deserters came across the river and reported to Hessian officers the American army was preparing to march. On that day or next, a loyalist physician who lived in a doctor's house on the river in South Trenton told Colonel Rawl that, quote, the rebels were going across the Delaware. On Christmas Day, a countryman named Wall came to Yohan Rawl and said, Colonel, take care, they're going to attack you. Rawl replied, let them come. Colonel Rawl was confident his garrison could deal with the rebels in an open fight, as they had done many times before, but he had to keep his men on constant alert. Every day and night, the entire regiment remained under arms, ready to muster at a moment's notice. So that's the big thing I want to get out of our heads. The myth is that the Hessians were all sleeping and hungover from Christmas partying, and that's what the Americans won. It's the story you always learn. It's not true. Rawls' men were not. They were ready to go. They were prepared. They knew they had advance warning that this was going to happen. But here's the key thing. It all comes back to the weather. All right? So that night, winter storm hit Trenton. The garrison breathed a sigh of relief. After 3 days of constant alarms and little sleep, the Hessian duty officers all eased off a little. Major Dachau issued orders to cancel the next morning's pre-dawn patrol because of the heavy storm. On the north side of town, Lieutenant Winterholt allowed his men to take shelter in the picket house. At last, in the midst of the howling nor'easter, the Hessian garrison relaxed for the first time in 8 days. Nobody thought the enemy could attack in such weather. That was the key. Yeah, we're ready for an attack, but no one's going to attack tonight. Nothing really works. Bad storm. We can finally kind of rest. They were exhausted from all this alert of being attacked every single night by little pickets, little New Jersey people attacking them constantly. So it's all working together. And here's the map of the things in New Jersey, the raids. These are all raids by people, not Washington's army. 3 different raids by civilians and militia, all just hitting the Hessians, hitting the British with their own forces, not even under Washington's control. But they're working to help Washington at the same time. Okay? Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, folks. A couple other quick things I want to share with you today. Let's kind of wrap things up. Here is... No, not any of these. We talked about music, right, on the battlefield. Yeah. Super important, right? This is a great way for them to communicate through, signals, right, to move, to retreat. This is how the music sounds. You wouldn't have these big, like, marching band drums in the army. With these drums, you would. And those fifes.
Ladies and gentlemen, now entering the field, the fifes and drums of Yorktown, Virginia.
There's tons of music. Some's just for enjoyment. Some's for, again, marching, retreating. And the fife, which is just like has 6 touch holes, right? Yeah, and no, 8. And I used to be able to play that like a little bit. My cousins who live in Williamsburg, Virginia, you guys know what that is? Like a really huge historic place outside William and Mary. They're really good. My one cousin actually is part of the Williamsburg Fife and Drum Corps, and she even performed in front of the president. Like, they're really good. Like, they're like amazing. But they're super high-pitched shrill, and that shrill can be heard above gunfire and all this kind of stuff. So that's why it was used so, often on the battlefield. And even when we watched the movie The Crossing, there's a scene there where Washington's like, finally, we got some Hessian fifer and drummers. Give me them. I want them to play a song for us as we march out of here. Because the American Army was so ill-equipped, it didn't even have any fifers at that one moment. So it needed them. So, kind of neat. All right. Next one. This is a slow guys going through the firing process of the musket. But it's still kind of cool, so you can kind of see for it. Look for the 2 explosions. Remember I told you that? One outside the gun, the fire goes in the touch hole, ignites the powder outside the barrel. This is very dramatic. I know. Ooh. Serene. Y'all meditate now too at the same time. Deep breaths. 1, 2. This guy's great. He's ready. It's a Patriot. Oh, gosh. Great close up there, right? But you see the powder in the pan. You pour a little bit in there, right? Close the pan. Puts the rest on the barrel. Yep, paper goes down with it. Most of it burns off, but a little bit comes out. He's doing one thing which makes you a little nervous. He puts his hand over the barrel a little bit, and you're always trained not to do that, because even if it goes off accidentally, the powder and the force will still take off your hand. You know there was no ball there. That's how strong it is. It's a lot of powder. So he gets ready. Now watch the 2 explosions. See it? 1, second one. Yeah. The bad thing was when you had it loaded and it went poof, but then it didn't go off. That was very dangerous because it was like a misfire. And then you gotta cook it with like water. Yeah. They can go off at any moment. You don't know. No. This lady, she's ready though. She's ready. Gender equality here, men and women. Revolution. She's ready. Defend the home front. Goes. Watch the shoot. The same thing. Boom, boom. That's kind of neat. Right. Yeah. Awesome. She smiles. All right. Now, I don't have time. This is actually a 9-minute long clip. But they did this like modern thing of muskets versus Kentucky rifle, and it's really cool because they use the original guns and they show you how they worked. But if we have time, we'll watch it later. We might have a little time for this one. Next one is just, oh, I forgot to put in there. I'll put in there later. I thought I put in there slide. Oh, there it is. I showed you these already, right? Yeah. This was the Washington's box where he traveled. So Washington always went to great lengths to look really good and professional and a leader everywhere he went, and that actually carried with him all the time. This is his actually traveling box during the war. Has all of his plates, inks, diaries, paper to write, to eat from. Kind of neat. So it's been preserved and saved in the Smithsonian. This is the Battle of Bunker Hill. Remember we talked a little with General Howe last week? General Howe led the assault, right, on Bunker Hill, but also was horrified by the result. His troops had won, but at a huge cost of life, right? And casualties. So this is the British assault of Breeds Hill and Bunker Hill. That's Howe, supposedly. Same map. But this is the painting that's kind of dramatic of the soldiers in these long lines, right? With about 80 pounds of backpacks on them. There's the drummers and the fifers, right, in the battle, and they're marching up the hill in this like red stained grass of all the death and the destruction. They won, but the Americans were right all sort of dug in. But after they ran out of ammunition for the third assault, they had to actually withdraw. This is actually a very dramatic painting of the same event. It's by artist Trumbull. Trumbull's been mentioned in your book. He was actually one of Washington's soldiers, but he was also an artist. And he sketched a lot of the stuff during the war, and then when the war was over, he painted these dramatic paintings of the war. Very famous American artist. This is a very romanticized view of the Battle of Bunker Hill. He also painted that painting over there, the famous one above my bookshelf of the Declaration of Independence being signed. That's also him. He's a very famous American artist, but he was actually a soldier in Washington's army, which is kind of neat. All right, I think that's really it. Okay, I wanted to save you some time. I know you guys take a lot. Just organize with your groups. Make sure you're all done with the plan, the opportunity, occupation. Do what you got to do in your own time and submit it. And if you have any annotations in your book that I haven't looked at yet, hard copy, I can look at them right now so I can give you credit for it. Please submit your camis for everything we've done so far up through tomorrow would be the river. Did I show you how to do the discussion? I did not. Shoot. All right, sorry. So here's our other possibility for tomorrow's discussion. We're not going to have an in-class discussion of it, so here's how I prepared it. You got another option. See, the discussion is pretty short. It's a short chapter, 206 to 220. It's only 14 pages. It's a really important one. You got to read it carefully. It is the crossing. You will use this a lot in your paper analysis. You can write your response below to those questions, or you can also do a flip grid video post. Might be easier than typing it up. And here it is, a link in the QR code for every single period. Period 4. Click on the link or scan it with the app, you're good. Do your post on your phone, you're done. You don't got to type anything at all. All right, but if you want to do a written post, do a written post down here, and then copy the text into this link too. Always copy into the link if you're going to do a text post. So you got a lot of options. And if you reply to people's posts like you would in class, you make a conversation, I'll give you even more credit. So you can earn full credit even by doing that. No, it will be here online only. They're doing a paper on it as well. Well, kind of we do tomorrow, but I'll take it tomorrow or Wednesday. By through this week would be great. Okay? Sound pretty good? Yeah. Yeah, come around real quick. Submit your camis, please.